Okay, let's just dive right in. We have some major breaking geopolitical news that really gives us the perfect lens for today's deep dive.
It absolutely does. We're looking at the latest 2025 Department of Defense report on China's military, and this news event, well, it's the perfect real-world example of everything in that report.
So what happened? What's the trigger?
It's China's Ministry of Commerce. They just hit back, and they hit back hard. On December 29th, 2025, Beijing used its anti-foreign sanctions law.
And who did they target?
They imposed countermeasures on 20 major U.S. defense companies and 10 senior executives. And they were very clear this was retaliation for U.S. arms sales to Taiwan.
Okay, so this is more than just a diplomatic statement. These are real economic sanctions. What do they actually do?
They're pretty sharp. The measures freeze any assets these companies or people have in China.
Right.
And maybe more importantly, they completely bar any Chinese organizations or individuals from doing business with them.
But how much business do U.S. defense primes really do in China? Is this mostly symbolic?
For the most part, yes. The direct business is minimal, but the signal is enormous. And they did mention one very specific target, a Boeing production hub in St. Louis, Missouri.
Ah, so they're showing they can reach beyond just, direct military sales and hit related commercial assets. It's a warning shot.
Exactly. It's an escalating tit for tat. And that just sets the stage perfectly for understanding China's long game.
Which is what they call the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation.
Right. That's the 2049 goal. And at the absolute center of that vision as a non-negotiable core interest is unification with Taiwan.
If 2049 is the finish line, there's a much shorter term goal that's frankly a bit more alarming.
Yes. The PLA has a very specific operational deadline. They're aiming to achieve what they call strategic decisive victory over Taiwan by the end of 2027.
What does that actually mean, strategic decisive victory?
It means that by that date, China expects its military to be fully capable of fighting and winning a high-intensity war over Taiwan, full stop.
Why 2027? Is it about their military being ready, or is it more political? Tied to Xi Jinping's legacy, maybe?
It's almost certainly both. But the shift in their language is just as important as the hardware. They've moved past just trying to deter Taiwan from declaring independence.
The narrative has shifted from deterrence to coercion.
Precisely. They're applying near constant pressure to compel unification. And here's the really profound shift. Throughout 2024 and 2025, in all these high-profile statements, the phrase peaceful unification started disappearing.
That's a pretty chilling omission.
It is. It signals that non-peaceful options are becoming, increasingly normalized in their strategic thinking.
And we saw this play out in the real world with those massive exercises, Joint Sword 2024 and 2024B.
Huge exercises. They were held in May and October of 24, right after speeches by Taiwan's President La Ching-te. And the scale was just on another level.
What are the numbers?
The number of PLA aircraft in Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, the ADIZ, it just surged. It went from about 1,700 in 2023 to nearly 2,800 in 2024.
That's a huge jump, a 60% increase in just 1 year.
It is. But the really new thing, the development you have to watch, was the integration of the China Coast Guard, the CCG.
Right, I saw that. Why bring a law enforcement agency into a war game? That seems very deliberate.
Oh, it's crucial. The CCG was in both exercises simulating a joint blockade of Taiwan and its offshore islands like Kinmen. It's a classic gray zone tactic.
They use ships that look like law enforcement to do military work.
Exactly. It's coercive, it has a military effect, but it stays just below the threshold of declared war. It makes it incredibly difficult for the U.S. or anyone else to respond. They're practicing how to strangle Taiwan while maintaining plausible deniability.
So the strategy is intensified coercion, and the tools for it are getting better and better. Let's talk about the engine behind all this, the money.
The military-industrial engine. The goal is a world-class military by 2049, and they're very openly benchmarking themselves against what they call the strong enemy.
The United States.
Of course. And this costs a staggering amount of money. China is the second largest military spender in the world. But that announced budget, the $231 billion for 2024, that's not the real story.
It's higher.
Much higher. When you factor in R&D, mobilization costs, things hidden in civilian budgets, the DoD estimates the real figure is somewhere between $304 and $377 billion.
That's a massive amount of fuel for this machine. But there's a potential break on the horizon, right?
Yeah.
China's economic growth is slowing down.
It is. Forecasts predict it could slow to 3 or 4% by 2030. That could eventually put a ceiling on this expansion, but for now, the investment is paying off with huge technological leaps.
Especially in their Navy.
Absolutely. Just look at the sea trials for the Fujian, their newest aircraft carrier. This isn't just another ship.
This is their first flat deck carrier. Why is that such a big deal?
It's a total game changer for their power projection. Their older carriers have a ski jump ramp, which limits how heavy aircraft can be when they take off.
Less fuel, fewer weapons.
Right. A flat deck with an electromagnetic catapult system, which the Fujian has, lets them launch bigger, heavier, more capable planes. It massively extends the reach and punch of their carrier groups.
And the ambition is huge. They want, what, 9 carriers in total?
The goal is 6 new ones by 2035 for a total of 9. The same ambition is happening in space.
With their command and control systems, their C4ISR.
Exactly. Their network of intelligence and surveillance satellites has just exploded. They have over 359 systems in orbit now, which is triple what they had in 2018.
And they're building their own version of Starlink.
They are. The G60 Starlink project. It's a planned 12,000 satellite constellation in low Earth orbit.
And for you, the listener, what does that mean?
It means China's military is on the verge of having instant, resilient, global communications that are much, much harder to jam or disrupt. It's a constant, real-time eye over the entire battlefield.
Let's turn to cyber. The report mentioned a specific campaign, Volt Typhoon.
Volt Typhoon is critical. This isn't just about stealing data. This is about pre-positioning. They are burrowing into U.S. critical infrastructure.
What kind of infrastructure?
Logistics hubs, ports, energy grids, all of the civilian infrastructure that the U.S. military would need to mobilize and deploy forces in a conflict. They're trying to degrade America's ability to project power before the first shot is even fired.
And all of this is happening while they're expanding their global reach, especially with Russia.
That partnership is getting deeper. In 2024, they did their first ever combined Coast Guard patrol in the Bering Sea right next to Alaska.
Wow.
And they flew a combined bomber patrol into the U.S.-Alaska ADIZ for the first time. These are not subtle moves.
And they're building bases overseas, too.
Yeah.
We know about Djibouti, but there's a new one.
In Cambodia. In April 2025, they inaugurated the Joint Logistics and Training Center at Ream Naval Base. And even before it officially opened, PLA warships were constantly docked there.
So it's a story of rapid, accelerating progress on all fronts.
Yep.
More money, more ships, more satellites.
Yep.
But here's the tension, right? The paradox.
The corruption paradox. This is the fundamental problem for Xi Jinping. His anti-corruption campaign is still ripping through the PLA.
And we're talking about very senior people being taken down.
But we are. Multiple members of the Central Military Commission. The numbers are just stunning. Of the military members chosen for the Central Committee in late 2022, nearly 20% have since been removed or are under investigation.
That level of chaos at the top has to have real-world consequences, right? It can't just be a political cleanup.
Oh, it does. We're seeing reports of major capability shortfalls, things that sound almost unbelievable, like brand new missile silos with lids that don't work properly.
Oh, wait, really?
Yes. Or the possible sinking of their first Zoo-class submarine right at the pier. It shows that this corruption isn't just about money. It directly translates into faulty equipment and degraded readiness.
So as China is dealing with all this internal rot, its external pressure is forcing its neighbors into an arms race. How's Japan reacting?
Japan is undergoing the biggest expansion of its self-defense forces since World War II. They're planning record military spending for 2026, focused on anti-missile systems and modernizing their navy. It's a major shift.
And Taiwan.
Taiwan is preparing its entire society for a crisis. They have extended mandatory military conscription, and they've created a whole-of-society defense resilience committee.
So it's not just about the military.
No, it's about preparing everyone, government, companies, civilians, to withstand a conflict, stockpiling materials, securing networks. Their defense budget is now 2.5% of GDP.
So this is really the key takeaway for you, the listener. You have this incredible acceleration from China, the 2027 goal, the massive exercises, the sanctions. But at the same time, this deep internal corruption is undermining the very machine they're trying to build.
And the whole competition is centered on dual-use tech, AI, semiconductors, biotech. It's all part of what they call a national total war.
Which brings us to a final provocative thought. Maybe the biggest risk to the global economy isn't the Chinese Navy. Maybe it's not the ships at all.
I think that's right. The real danger could be their ability to launch non-kinetic attacks. Cyber attacks.
Explain that.
China sees conflict as a clash of entire national systems. Through things like Volt Typhoon, they've shown they can cause localized, temporary disruptions to our critical infrastructure, shutting down a natural gas pipeline for a few days or weeks, for example.
So if they can't win a conventional fight, they try to cripple the system that supports it.
Exactly. The integrity of global fiber optic cables and satellite networks becomes the critical, unseen weak point. That's the real battleground.
Fascinating and deeply unsettling. Okay, that brings us to our final segment, our outrageous but plausible trade idea.
And of course, the standard disclaimer, this is not financial advice. We're just connecting the dots between the geopolitics we've discussed and potential market moves.
Today's idea is a dual defense duo hedge.
Yeah.
You're playing the external arms race against that internal corruption we just talked about.
Exactly. Action number one is long. You buy the big defense prime contractors that supply our allies, the ones China just sanctioned.
Why? Wouldn't the sanctions hurt them?
Not really. The sanctions are performative. Those stocks will shrug it off. But the tension in the region, Japan's rearmament, Taiwan spending tens of billions on U.S. hardware. Taiwan's already committed $40 billion to a U.S. defense dome. That creates guaranteed long-term revenue for these firms.
Okay, so that's the long side. What's the short?
Action number two is short. You sell or short a company that relies on a very specific, complex piece of Chinese commercial tech.
Like a commercial drone company or something similar?
Yes, something that uses, say, high-end sensors made by a state-owned Chinese firm that's now caught up in this PLA corruption scandal.
So you're not betting against China's rise. You're betting on its internal chaos.
You're betting that the PLA's internal purges and corruption will create a massive, unexpected supply chain risk. Quality control failures, sudden disruptions, maybe even U.S. secondary sanctions. You're playing the internal political risk, not the big geopolitical one.
A truly dual-track play for a very complex world. We'll leave you to think about those military moves and their very specific market implications.